Hello, good morning to all our friends who've come to this webinar. Sorry, hang on. Good morning. My name is Dave Jenkins. I'm calling in from Austin, Texas. I'm the VP of Product and Research for Iterate AI. Iterate is an AI low-code development platform. We specialize in providing Gen AI and core AI solutions for our clients across the financial and automotive and retail and beauty and luxury spaces. So today we're going to be talking about AI in the enterprise, and this is kind of a general overview of, I guess, where AI is being deployed. And obviously, I think everybody here probably has been saturated with this kinds of information. We're going to give our take a little bit. We're going to give some case studies. Excuse me, kind of some illustrative examples. And by no means this is comprehensive because that would be impossible in 30 minutes. But what we want to do is we want to give some insights and how we see this AI market developing over the next few months. So let me share my screen. So if you can see that, great. So AI in the enterprise, the methods, the risks, and the tactics. And so let's just jump into it. Our core thesis here is that AI will find its equilibrium in the enterprise, just like all other digital tools and even analog productivity tools. Right now, Gen AI is grabbing all the hype. OpenAI can't go a day without seeing new images or new text or everything. We're all writing sonnets about our cats and things like that, but obviously Gen AI is having a real impact in real productivity tools. We think that eventually it will just become air. It will just become the same way we treat email now. It's everywhere. It's just a normal part of the daily business life, and it will just be a normal tool that everyone uses all day long. Core AI, which has actually been around for 20 years or maybe longer, depending on how you define things, as machine learning or simpler algorithms, that's been on Wall Street for decades now. And that's already kind of found its equilibrium. But right now, GPT is grabbing all the flash and upsetting that equilibrium. So everyone's kind of running around freaking out a little bit. But what we want to do is we want to go through just, again, some example cases to show that maybe the difference between core AI and Gen AI and how it's being deployed and what you as an enterprise business person should look for. So some AI deployments. Basically, and I think for those of you who were here 2 weeks ago when we talked about the CES, you might remember this graph. Hardware used to be, there was a core hardware and then there was some software that controlled it and then a user interface, but now there have been two levels. There's the core AI that helps control AI, the hardware, and then companies are now starting to wrap this plain language wrapper, we call it this Gen AI GPT wrapper. So you'll be able to essentially just be able to talk to the toaster and ask it to make your favorite cheese melt without having to go through Alexa or Siri or things like that. That will be built into the device. For the enterprise case, this is actually showing up in the warehouse and in logistics. This is an actual screenshot, so you can see that the open box is being identified, the worker's stance is being identified to see if it's ergonomically correct, the safety, the wrapping, everything's being identified in real time, and this is being ergonomically processed ergonomically analyzed for optimal throughput, right? Computer vision has been around for a while now, and it's getting a lot better very quickly, again, because of the math, and now Gen AI, actually the kind of the core mathematics of Gen AI is having an impact in improving the efficiency of computer vision. Computer vision can read QR codes. It's making the entire logistics process much faster on all the hardware levels for logistics. For example, and you can see the core AI here for Bastion Solutions or Amazon. Amazon cannot buy robot companies fast enough. It's automating wherever possible with computer vision and sensor interpretation, central orchestration, navigation, and pathfinding, even for its trucks, for its robots in the warehouse, for every level. RF Gen, Boston Dynamics, the big robot people, the dancing robots, they've had core AI for computer vision, obviously, pathfinding, object manipulation. Some of these companies are now starting to put GPT wrappers, so you'll be able to talk to the Boston Dynamics robot, again, just in plain English, and it will be able to, tell you stories, or you'll just be able to ask the robot, hey, please go take those boxes and put them in the truck, and it will know that, and it will understand to do So again, now if we apply that same model to the software, software apps have always had a core app software like Excel for processing math, or Oracle, a big core database. But now that same core AI is coming in the form of predictive analytics, pattern matching, computer vision, business logic. And then these these apps, these complex applications are now starting to put GenAI plain language wrappers around their core app. So again, plain English, you'll just be able to ask the app instead of trying to write some complex SQL query. You'll just be able to say, please show me all the Toyota Tacoma parts orders from zip code 78738 during Toyotathon, which is, I'm sure, a big number, right? And again, the big players, this is by no means comprehensive, but Salesforce, Oracle, SAP, Microsoft Dynamics, they have all had their core AI with the predictive analytics, the automatic task management, financial optimization, routine tasks, anomaly detection for SAP, and now they're all starting to add these GPT wrappers. So you'll have conversational agents. Basically, this is the takeaway. These complex ERPs and these complex dashboard apps, if they've had a plethora of dashboards, and if they've got so much information to provide so much information to the business at all levels, that complexity of the dashboard itself has become a hindrance. And so therefore now these GPT plain English wrappers, where you can just ask a query in plain English or plain Spanish or where you might speak, is now becoming key to having these complex applications being able to interface with normal business users without having to go through a complex business analyst or anything like that. Yeah, so again, the takeaway here: core AI in ERP systems streamlines complex processes and enhances analytics, while the GPT plain language wrappers simplify the user interactions, together improving efficiency and decision making. And again, just for example, Salesforce with its Einstein, that's their GPT wrapper around theirs. They're predicting 1 trillion predictions a week, assuming, and they've got about 150,000 clients, assuming 1,000 clients each, that's about 900 predictions per user per day. It might be less than that if they've got more than 150, if they've got more than 150 million users. Anyway, that's a big number. In the sales and marketing part, Hootsuite, Meltwater, Adobe, Google Analytics. Again, these are all companies who have very complex dashboards, several dashboards, depending on the user, depending on how deep they want to go. They've all had core AI for segmentation, augmentation, value impact prediction, document search, conversion probability for Google Analytics, but now they're all providing GPT plain wrappers around that core AI. So normal people, quote unquote normal people, can just go in and ask simple questions or get their queries back in, again, plain language. Some of them, for example, Meltwater and Google Analytics, are going so far as to actually push insights that even weren't asked for, but say, hey, by the way, did you know that Toyota parts are being sold at twice the rate during Toyotathon? No, I didn't know that, right? Meltwater or Google Analytics, they're going to proactively push that towards you, right? And again, so let's talk about the production cycle here. This is, if you can see the blue circle here, this is a normal course of events where, a company will come up with a prototype, they'll put it into production, they'll market it, it'll go to supply chain, it'll go out to influencers, and then it'll result in sales, and the cycle repeats. Shein, the Chinese fast fashion provider, has shortcut that entire cycle in that they just go straight from prototyping, where they're using GenAI to come up with new designs for clothes. They go straight to marketing, and they're using AI optimization at every step there. They're going straight to influencers, whom they are tracking through AI performance review, kind of, penetration, things like that. And Shein knows weeks ahead of everybody else on when a jacket or when a certain color is no longer hip, it isn't really cool with the cool kids anymore. Shein immediately shuts that down and goes back to the drawing board and does the prototyping. This fast red triangle is weeks faster than the blue cycle. And I don't know if anybody knows this, but typical fast fashion really only has a shelf life of 6 to 8 weeks. Shein, by this cycle, they're cutting that down to 2 to 3 weeks. And they literally are lapping everybody else. And this is, again, AI at every level of the production cycle. In commercial finance, and this is kind of customer-facing commercial finance, Stripe, Brex, QuickBooks, they've all had core AI for the payment orchestration or for the real-time insights. Again, the analytics, the predictive analytics, the pattern matching, things like that. But now they're all starting to put GPT wrappers around it to provide conversational interfaces or virtual assistants or just kind of the general. Finance can be dense. Finance can be a certain, there's so much jargon, it's difficult to understand for normal users. So all these providers are now providing these GPT wrappers to bring those insights and those predictions that are all part of their core AI out to users in a consumable fashion. Wall Street. And again, we don't really know the depths of Wall Street, what they're doing, because they're very secret about that, because there's billions at stake. Every microsecond they can make a trade or a decision faster equals billions of dollars. We know that JP Morgan has over 3,600 AI-related job openings right now. Goldman Sachs has 1,000 developers for just GenAI. Approximately 40% of the open positions are AI-linked roles for the big banks. Predictive modeling has been around for 2 decades. Again, that's their core AI. But as we're starting to see, JP Morgan has now trademarked an index GPT, which is acting kind of like a broker. And so it will give you advice in customer queries. They can say, well, I'm 55 years old and I've got a fixed income and I need this. This index GPT will start to give you recommendations just like the neighborhood broker would at the Wachovia shop. Cybersecurity, Darktrace, Checkpoint, Splunk, Sentinel-1, again, these are just a sampling. They're all using core AI and computer vision for threat detection, anomaly detection, pattern matching, because DDoS attacks and other network hacking, things like that, there are patterns to it and they can be detected. That's where the core AI comes in. But here also, these companies are using plain GPT to act as virtual assistants to kind of explain things out and to generate reports, again, in plain English, and to navigate these complex interfaces these might have. Contract review. I think we've all used this. Warning, and we'll go into this later in a second. Do not throw all your contracts through OpenAI and GPT, because essentially you're making them public, right? But there are plenty of services like Kira and LawGeeks and Brevia. These are acting as SaaS providers, and they do contract review. They are private. They're actually quite good, and we'll show you some statistics in a second. Turns out that contract review with AI is much more accurate, and it's much more secure. The contracts end up being perceived as much more secure than what a normal human lawyer might write. Now, some rewards and risks. What's working? What's at risk? And I'm not going to go into too much details, but as we've seen all over the place, medical diagnostics, predictive analytics, retail, manufacturing, they're all seeing huge efficiency gains with AI and GenAI. Robots work faster. Repetitive tasks are easily automated, and they just work better. As we can see here, AI has surpassed human in a number of tasks. Writing, just anything repetitive. The risks here are an over-reliance or maybe a job displacement. I'm not sure we're seeing that. And the security and privacy, because again, a lot of these tools, if they're just kind of openly public like that, there is some exposure there. The rewards are, we can automate the routine, the boring tasks, and we can enhance the decision making, because theoretically people have more time to think on the bigger topics rather than just sitting there clicking left to down, left to down, left to down all day long. Now, as I mentioned earlier on the contracts, as you can see on the statistical quality distribution, this is a perception question, but we're seeing that those contracts that were written in conjunction with GPT are perceived as higher quality than what you would see in the blue, which is just what a normal human would have written without any GPT insight. There are data security risks here. Data breaches do happen. If you've got a large amount of confidential data inside your organization, you may want to consider a private LLM. And shameless self-promotion, we'll be talking about private LLMs in 2 weeks, so please go back and see that. AI does carry biases. So look for bias control measures in your LLM provider. Just ask them, what are you doing about what are you doing about AI bias in the text and in the images? And if they don't have an answer, well, then hang on, there might be some problems there. Manipulation and deepfakes. I don't know if everybody saw this, but last week, some deepfakers stole $26 million from a company in Hong Kong, because they were essentially able to fake a number of people on a Zoom call. I shouldn't have. They're able to fake a number of people on a Zoom call and essentially cheat the company out of huge amounts of money. Just as we've all had cybersecurity training, please have your crew go through an enterprise-wide training to identify, well, first of all, to understand what deepfakes are, and second of all, there are tools and there are ways to kind of hopefully see them and identify them early. So we would advocate that kind of training. The rewards for data security with LLMs. GenAI can play defense too. The security tools that are now available, again, like I had mentioned earlier, they're using pattern matching, and we can identify generated text and generated images with the same tools that are used to build them. We can, and also thanks to the AI bias issue, there have been some long overdue conversations regarding how minorities and people of color and sexual orientation may be perceived. AI bias, which has just kind of exposed that to some extent, is starting to have some very, hopefully in the long term, very productive and very helpful conversations in the enterprise. Authenticity and digital content. Again, the same technology that can generate deep fakes can also identify them. So it's going to come down to an arms race. Legal liability is a big issue, and it will get bigger. Accountability and traceability. We can go into this in a later discussion, but AI transparency is the concept that, because AI kind of operates in a black box, the AI processes that were built, that were used to build that LLM should be as transparent as possible. Here, open source has some stronger advantages because theoretically it's open. Well, not theoretically, it is open, and it should be open to more scrutiny and therefore more transparency. There are intellectual property issues, as we've seen. We think that watermarking of images and of text will probably become standard very soon. And even we're starting to see some sort of data poisoning, where creative types are actually they're putting their data in a sort of scheme that poisons it, so it can't be picked up by other LLMs and essentially, kind of regurgitated. There's a certain, I'm sorry if my image is over, I was covering over that, but regulatory compliance. Every in-house counsel's office should have at least one lawyer or one person in charge of digital and AI compliance. Please know there is an AI Bill of Rights, and we'll talk about that in a few weeks as well. There's a whole myriad of regulations coming out, and also the EU is ahead of the United States, and so if you've got any sort of operations in the European Union, this is a very important factor to consider. Now, at the same time, there's also rewards here. AI transparency is key to providing that those challenges around what is compliant and what is not. The watermarking, as I described, will become standard, and proactive regulatory engagement. Right now, a lot of companies are maybe pushing back on some of these regulations because they think it might be stifling business. At the same time, the regulation, until it's settled, there's really no framework to work off of. So this is a give and take. This is a back and forth. It'll work its way out, just like all other digital technologies and the law. And again, as I had mentioned, the White House Bill of Rights was issued in October 2022. And basically, they're pushing for safe and effective systems. We don't want AI bias. Humans should have data privacy. Humans should have notice and explanation of any sort of whenever AI is being used, especially in professional environments like doctors or lawyers or architects or anybody with some sort of legal responsibility. And there also should always be a human callback. There's a human fallback. If you're talking to a chatbot, there should always be a button that says, click here to talk to a real human. Cultural impact. A lot of people are fearing job displacement, and obviously that gathers all the news. It doesn't necessarily have to happen, but it is incumbent upon the HR departments to provide constant training at all levels. Everyone in the organization should be able to understand what AI is and what it isn't, what it can and can't provide, and the risks and some of these legal complications and cultural and productivity impacts that it can have. If your organization is using AI, and frankly, if it's not, let me rephrase that. Every organization should be using AI wherever it fits. And at the same time, HR should take a very proactive stance and be training the organization to leverage that in the best possible way. Some are fearing an erosion of human skills. But I don't, personally, I'm not seeing that. Our creative team here uses AI all the time to generate images. In fact, there are several images in this deck here that have been generated. We see it as a cost-saving tool, the same way that we see Photoshop as a cost-saving tool 30 years ago, the same way as we see Figma as a cost-saving tool, right? Cultural homogenization. AI is essentially autocomplete on a massive scale. It's picking the most average answer. So don't use it to write your creative because you'll come up with the most average copy. No. But if you want to use AI to come up with more creative answers, things like that, good. Just again, be careful of the biases. And again, now the rewards. Again, as we talked about, the workforce will evolve. We personally at Iterate don't think that we'll lose jobs. It's just we think these jobs will shift. We think that all companies should be using AI to enhance their skill set. And the more abstract you can think, the better you will thrive in this new economy. And again, back to the creative team, use AI for creative diversification. If just again to put it bluntly, if a tool like Wall-E or Midjourney can save you 3 hours instead of coming up with different variants on the Photoshop, well then fine. Use some of those saved 3 hours to come up with a lot more variants because you might see where things might go. In other words, it's a creative enhancement tool. It's not a creative destruction tool. Now, some tactics. And again, this is early on, but patterns are emerging. We see it there. The price is dropping rapidly. It was always pretty affordable, but it's getting more and more affordable to where it's just going to be kind of a rounding error on the large scale. LLMs can provide sentiment analysis, content summarization. There are some very, very productive tools out there. It can elevate the service. Don't leave customer support completely to the chatbot, but let the chatbot, or at least let the LLM enhance the responses and still have a human responding to your customers. But now your human can give much more deeper references and automatically pull up much richer answers. Make sure you're compliant, and this is all positioned for strategic growth. Now, again, back to that wrapper. Ask your SaaS providers. Ask them specifically, not just do you have AI, but ask them if what is their core AI. They don't know what that means because that's maybe our term here. Ask them what their core AI is, not GPT, but are they using computer vision? Are they using pattern matching? Are they using predictive analytics? What is the core stuff at that? And then ask them how is the app leveraging these GenAI plain language wrappers. A lot of them will just say, well, yes, we're using OpenAI to wrap things. That's fine, but that's also kind of dependent on OpenAI, so there's a risk there. And again, to that point, what I call remora, those little fish that swim along with the sharks and eat the scraps, is your Gen AI provider really just a remora? Is it the shark itself? Do they have their own LLM, or are they really just kind of packaging a UX on top of OpenAI? I'm not saying one's better or the other than that. That's something you should be aware of. And then privacy. Is your Gen AI private? Is the data proprietary? Should it be? Are the generated results proprietary? Again, if you're using OpenAI, you're pretty much exposing everything, or unless you have a good conversation with your LLM provider, is this private? Is this a private instance? Is this in the cloud? Where is it? All those privacy questions, they still exist, right? Now, who can use AI in the enterprise? The answer: everybody. Some of your teams will need to should be using an in-house LLM or an in-house AI provider. Some of them can be using a SaaS provider. HR, probably there's some very good HR tools for SaaS that are SaaS-based to post resumes and review resumes. That's not necessarily private information. It's private to the person, but that's not really private proprietary information, I guess is the difference there. If your marketing team, for example, is generating images and those images are part of your product, well, then that's also becomes proprietary data. So you should be running that in-house with a tool like DALL-E or something. Right. Now, some questions. Where does the responsibility for AI sit in the enterprise? Is it IT? Is it marketing? Is it legal? Well, there's some considerations here. AI does touch every part of the enterprise. Some of it will be impacted more than others. And although AI is a digital technology, identifying the quality AI is just as much about the mathematical models underneath as it is about the applications. And there's an impact of that I'll come to in a second. AI deployment decisions must account for operational, financial, cultural, legal factors. Essentially, it touches everything. Therefore, with having said that, then this AI boss, in our opinion, should be a C-level position to ensure an equal place among all departments and carrying the full confidence of the CEO of the board of directors. This CAIO, Chow, right? This person could report to the chief digital officer because maybe AI is a digital technology at the end of the day. Now, when searching for the CAIO or this Chow, I'll stop saying that. When searching for the CAO, a traditional IT manager may not be the best fit, given the newness of this space. Academics and theoreticians and others, this is much more about math than it is about application. Here, I'll turn my camera on, sorry. So when searching for this child, the traditional IT managers may not be the best fit. Academics and theoreticians from university programs with their deep understanding of the mathematical models, which is the key here, would be excellent candidates for this new CAIO position. Here we go. Now, having said all that, there are cases where a GPT may not be needed. You will need a GPT wrapper if your organization has quote unquote too much data. If you got too many dashboards, you want that GPT to help explain everything. You want the customer queries to be smarter in your chatbot. If you've got a complex product catalog with myriad options for every product that are interdependent on each other, a chatbot or some sort of LLM to help explain that to your customers is going to be very, very helpful. However, there are cases where a GPT is not necessarily needed. An ice cream shop doesn't need a GPT because it's ice cream. There's only 31 flavors. It's pretty straightforward. And also maybe a part of the operation where a human touch is actually the whole point. A hair salon is equal parts haircut and equal parts chit chat. That's the whole point, is the human touch. If your products are self-explanatory, again, and I'm paraphrasing here, but Steve Jobs, he was never satisfied with the product until there was no user manual, right? So that is today's presentation. And we will see you in 2 weeks. And I think my coworker Emily is going to post a link here in the chat, but then also on LinkedIn. In 2 weeks from now, we'll be talking about private LLMs and SLM, which is a small language model, and the advantages that it might bring to your organization compared to a large language model. Thank you. We've got 3 minutes left. There's a couple users. When can we see a similar talk for SMBs? Yes, we can put that together. Greg asks, many organizations know what they need to get involved in AI, but don't know what they've left behind. But don't want to get left behind, but don't know how to leverage their assets for AI. How would you recommend the organizations prioritize where to focus? Good question, Greg. In our experience, it comes down to the sales and it comes down to the numbers. AI is very good at finding operational efficiencies, which means lower costs. But if you can grow your market with any sort of core AI or GenAI to extend into new markets or new sales or provide new services to your providers, that equals more revenue, right? And then someone asked, can we get a copy of the deck? Yes, we will make this a PDF and we will post it in the comments of the same place where you're seeing this recording. Okay, 2 minutes left. Thank you, everybody. And again, shameless self-promotion, Iterate AI provides GenAI for the enterprise, and we'll see you in 2 weeks where we'll talk about private LLMs. All right, thanks so much.